13th, 2020.
Hey, what's going on, guys? What's up, Nonconformist?
How we doing, everyone? We hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to continue to talk to you. We hope you're having a good afternoon. And over the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about the Bank of England going into negative interest rates and the potential for the U.S. banking industry to collapse next. Mike.
I definitely think that's the case. Something's come on, so guys, have you ever heard of banks or the Federal Reserve or any central bank offering negative interest rates? Think of that. The case behind this is, so the Bank of England is saying that they're seeing the economy will not improve and that the economy actually will actually go down, negatively, right? So because of that, because the economy isn't improving and it's getting worse, they're saying that the only way to actually go forward is to offer negative interest rates, which means that so the concept of it, usually when it's positive interest rates, the bank gives money at interest to the banks, which then loans it out to corporations and us at a higher interest, and that's how they make some of their profits. Now, when we went to zero, banks were getting free money, pretty much. You're getting money borrowed with no interest on it, and then they would loan it out to us with lower interest rates, but they still are profiting. Now, how will it work with negative interest rates? We've never seen this before. Same thing, right? We've never seen bonds in negative territory. Now we have that. We've never seen oil going into negative territory. We've had that. So what does that mean for negative interest rates for a bank going forward? That's going to bring many questions because if the case is that either the central bank is still going to give money to the banks, but at negative interest rates, what my mind would say is that right. This is how
what Tyler Winklevoss of the original Facebook thinks. He says, wow, the Bank of England discussing negative interest rates. If they adopt this, they would be paying you to borrow. You couldn't buy a better advertisement for Bitcoin, but you can take their money and go long Bitcoin.
So that's the concept that comes to your mind, right? It's like, oh, that means that I could get money, I could borrow money, and they will pay me to go and get that money from them, right? That's the concept. Or they're gonna pay me to get a loan, but banks are not. They don't operate that way. So unless the central bank is telling the banks, hey, we will pay you to take this money and loan it out, still because they'll still loan it out at interest. It'll just be at the lowest, but. Is that even profitable when you really think about it? It might not be. So that's the concept of what we think. Now, the real true concept that we're really trying to analyze here is what we think is going forward. Banks go into negative interest rates, meaning that they will not loan out money because there isn't a way to profit from negative interest rates. Meaning that if the central bank is not going to loan out money, that means that the regular banks can't get money from them, which means that they won't have money to loan to us because they're negative. It's not profitable, meaning that banks will probably go bankrupt.
We haven't seen a time in a while. The last bank run that happened in this country was in 1910, I believe, which led into the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. In 1910, the people all went to the banks because they were freaked out and they tried to get their gold and silver, and the bankers told them that they didn't have their gold and silver because they had made loans out behind there and that their money doesn't actually exist. So it has been quite a while since we've seen a banking crisis in this nation, but one of the ways that banks do make money is through positive interest rates. They take your money, you create a checking account, you deposit your money with them, they take your money, You sign the rights away that you don't actually have ownership of that anymore. That now becomes a liability on their books. They make loans out of your money, and then they profit from the interest rate, the positive interest rate on those loans. We haven't seen this in 5,000 years of recorded financial history, and it has never existed. And it really...
And on top of that, they take derivatives. They chop them up too, right? They chop up the loans, repackage them, sell them. So they're just it's like a compounded way of creating more and more wealth for the banks, right?
It's an erosion of the bank. It's an erosion of the banking industry because the bank no longer makes money. Their business model changes. You know, the only way that they made money is gone. And that's why we're seeing now banks charge depositors in countries where they have negative interest rates. Like in Italy, you're charged a fee annually on your safety deposit boxes, or if you're a high net worth client, 250,000 plus in deposits, they charge you an annual fee to keep your money there. And I don't think that's going to work in the long run for people.
I agree.
This is a part of Giabo, though, right? This is a part of what we've talked about here, the global insurrection against banker occupation. This ties into the idea of the Renaissance, and there's a possibility that the Fed could let the banks fail this time, and we could see bankers on the street protesting along with everyone else.
Yeah, well, they're different type of bankers that people need to understand here. You have the ultra big banks like the J.P. Morgans and the bigger, Goldman Sachs, right?
Yep.
All of those real big banks. And those bankers, which are the really old school, blue blood types that we believe, many people believe, I do, I know you do too, Joe, that might be shareholders of the Federal Reserve, right? You go and read the book, Jekyll Island, right?
Creature at Jekyll Island.
The Creature at Jekyll Island, they speak a lot about that whole situation. We think that those bankers are pretty much writing off the banking system, right? Saying, okay, we're going to cut our losses here because we are already overextended what needs to be overextended. And through this new generation of tech, we will now look into a new type of banking system, which is where the whole idea of cryptocurrencies, and not just, talking about Bitcoin and the like, more of like central bank created digital currencies like the dollar, right? Right now, the government is looking into ways of creating a digital currency separate from the dollar itself. Same thing with China's doing the same thing. Canada is doing the same thing. The majority of the powerful nations around the world are looking into creating a centralized cryptocurrency. Now, what does that mean for the bankers that are under those top bankers, right? The Wall Street speculators and all that. Those are the ones that we actually think that will be crying and out there rioting to Washington and all of that and lobbying and trying to figure out how they could get their cut.
Yeah,
that's what we're trying to understand.
They'll be begging for it.
They'll be begging, and now it's the power play moments.
It's amazing during financial crisis, the actual crash though, like you realize how consolidated the wealth actually is. We see now that the wealth gap is to the point where the top 0.01% of the population in the U.S. owns the same wealth as the bottom 99% of the people. And this bottom 99% does in fact include even these bank executives, for even J.P. Morgan, the certain bank executives. If you're not Jerome Powell, or you're not Steve Mnuchin, or you're not Jamie Dimon, and you think you're in a part of that elite kind of category because you've got a few $1 million a year salary or whatever, you realize very quickly that that ball drops, right? And we saw the same thing during the 1929 crash as well, is that most people, everyone got wrecked. You had bankers that were no longer bankers anymore. And this is what it seems like is taking place. But we'll have to see what happens. One of the other articles that we looked at this week was the Jerome Powell, who's the Fed chair, gave a speech yesterday on September 16th and had noted that the Fed doesn't have the tools to address inequality, and that the Fed bond buying supports market stability and stimulus. So the bond buying supports the market stability. Well, I mean, we clearly see here that Jerome Powell is saying that they don't have the tools to create equality in the financial system. That is because they are the financial system, right? They
don't want
they are
equality.
The wealth gap. This is the Cantillon effect that we've talked about, the pyramid, neo-feudalism. This is the mentality of the Renaissance. And he says it right there, that the only way that the market is staying afloat is by inflation through their bond buying program. It's the only thing keeping the market afloat.
Interesting you mentioned the Renaissance, because that's when the current banking system that we do have, right, debits and credits and the like, actually was created, right, for the Medici family back in, Florence, when the Renaissance actually started, or when we classify the Renaissance, right? That banking system is what we are based off of, and the creation happened after the Dark Ages. Now we are being told, or we think, that we will go into a Renaissance and that this is the end of the Dark Ages, right? We're hoping that we can get financial and wealth equality, but it doesn't look like that's what the powerful elite want. They're still trying to maintain that power structure. If anything, what we are seeing might be a wealth transfer or a transfer of power from the oligarchs of the banking system to the technocrats, right? Because the technocrats hold all the wealth of data, and data is as good as gold, right? It's a natural resource that we produce as humans, and it's highly valuable. So I think this is what we're seeing now, and we're trying to figure out how it is that society could actually keep up with this new change, because see, before we didn't have technology in the light that we do now, right? We have Moore's law. Everything's accelerating at an exponential rate. It's hard to really catch up at this point. It's not like before. We had time to catch up when the Industrial Revolution happened, and we had some time to catch up, and that was a struggle still. Now, that's accelerating, and that's why you have people like Andrew Yang that was proposing universal income, which people, they view it as communist. It is socialist. We have to understand that socialism and communism are not 100% the same thing. They're not. There's not the same thing. Every country has different percentages of socialism. So when people say, "Oh, well, that's socialism," well, it is, because what it has to do is with the society, right? And I'm not here talking about if it's good or bad. I don't care about that right now. What I'm talking about is a person like Andrew Yang comes and talks about universal income, basic income. It's because he understands that we are moving towards a new banking system, a new monetary system, a new technological type of world where we are in a symbiosis with AI, and that automation will be pretty much what's running everything. And so if that's the case, then the majority of people will not have a job. Like right now, a lot of people don't have work. So what will happen if this continues? People, we're gonna have people just starve to death? Let's be real. That's not the right thing to do. Number one, Mike, right? Well, that's not the right thing to do. Number two, if it push comes to shove, and that's what's gonna happen, you're gonna see all types of revolutions, and they'll go either extreme right or extreme left. Because of situations like this not being handled the correct way, you will see revolutions happen. And revolutions are great, but they're not always great. And you can see this with many nations, right? So,
well, one of the things we do is build in philosophy and a lot of history into our analysis of the markets. Everything in life happens in cycles. We've talked about this. These cycles happen. They've always happened in history. And if you can learn how to manage them, and when they're coming, then you can profit from those transitions. And And we're pretty much approaching that point where we're seeing the power struggle between the old way and the new way. We're seeing the power struggle between old governance and new governance. The technocrats are rising up as the new form of power. Data being the new oil, and we talk about all of this coming to light at a time where, if generational theory is sound and the fourth turning ends in 2025, and you also have what's called I'll figure out this actual other term, but pretty much it says that when there's a rising world power against an existing world power, there's kind of a trap that you put yourself into. It's a psychological trap, like it's an inevitable thing that there could be some type of conflict that arises from that. These are all explaining what we're seeing right now, and we know that what the banks are trying to do as fast as they can, at least the central banks right now, are creating a digital currency of some sort to transition people onto. And this is something that we've seen here in the United States. This is something that's being done in China and other parts of the world. It's the government's experiment and the Fed's experiment to actually transition the people onto a new form of currency. Mike, one of the articles I have up now is of Kraken. So Kraken is a cryptocurrency exchange in the United States and also internationally that has just been awarded banking license in Wyoming. So Kraken is officially launching a crypto bank in Wyoming, paving the way for possible stock offerings. Wyoming is the crypto capital of the United States. It seems like that thesis just continues to play out, that the next economy is digital. It will be on a blockchain of some sorts, and the transition's happening. If anyone wants to learn how to buy Bitcoin or Monero on Kraken, we do have links in the comments section, so you can just click it, follow our guide, and learn how to do it that way. That's why we promote them, is because we know they are one of the most legitimate exchanges in the world, and this new banking license is proving that, but it's also now paving the way for mass adoption of cryptocurrencies in the United States and abroad. I think it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, I agree, Joe. Something interesting you did mention is when one superpower loses that position, things do happen, right? We could see this in history, and the recent history we could look into is when the Soviet Union collapsed. You could see how Russia was put into a tailspin. First you saw nations breaking away from the Soviet Union, and then you see how that actually hurt its currency, and there was a revolution, there was a coup, and there was a lot of bloodshed, and that lasted for a long time. So something to think about going forward. Look at that time period and what happened, and you could use that as a way to prepare for something similar if that was to happen now.
Yeah. And that's why we're here. If you haven't subscribed already to our newsletter, you can go to the nonconformist.io and you could subscribe to our free email list where you get updates on our videos. We just started our official paid newsletter last month, so we do offer a paid financial newsletter that you'll receive monthly in a beautiful PDF format. This past month we didn't put our stock picks and recommendations, but we will have our portfolio where we'll only provide that to our paying subscribers of our recommended stock picks, gold stock picks, and we'll also have a cryptocurrency portfolio of recommended cryptocurrencies, and you can learn extra ways and how you can invest properly in that industry. But this is why we do what we do. This is a passion of ours, and this is something that we do. I mean, me being a student of finance, working in finance, and now being able to educate the broader market about what economics and finance actually are is definitely an honor for me. And Mike, I know it's very important to you and I that people have this kind of information, and it's because of new tools and technology as we're recording right now online. Everything, we know that the future is going to be online, and we do have the tools now to start taking back our own independence in the form of content, communication, and now payment systems. So definitely check us out if you haven't yet. Again, the nonconformist.io.
All right, guys.
I
Good
think
talking to you.
that's going to be it, y'all. We'll talk
Yeah,
to you soon.
that's.
Enjoy your
We'll
Thursday.
follow up. We'll follow up. We'll let you know what's going on in the banking system and everything else. We're in crazy times, like everyone keeps repeating. So,
Leave a
just,
comment. Leave a comment too. I'll figure out
yeah,
how to pull in the comments next. But if you got a question, go ahead and leave it there. We'll get back to you.
yeah.
All right,
All right,
everyone.
guys.
Take care, y'all.